What is going on, guys? Says that we're going live. I'm sure you saw some of the stuff that came before it as well. M stating, let's do this. Hope everybody is, just having a wonderful day. Don't forget to check me out at twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. Hey, the best way to argue with me, or if you want to say something about these live streams and you can't actually make it live, go to twitter.com/Lore Reloaded. Follow me there, and I'll definitely have a conversation with you. Maybe, probably. Twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. I've had issues today or yesterday and the day before that. I went live, but Twitch was having some kind of issue where no one saw me live. It was very frustrating. But I do have 8 p.m. Central Standard Time live streams there, and that's more laid back where I'm not dancing for you. So definitely come and hang out, and we'll talk a lot more, and I can be a lot more open there as well. So definitely check it out. Hope everybody is going well. We got greetings from dry England versus wet England. Wet England, as always, been an issue. Of course, Edward Augustus is from England as well. Shronmore, any other name, please? Pouring in here from Essex. So basically, all of the English people are arriving is what we're hearing and what we're going into. You know, something I just realized, I did not test to make sure when I'm going to do this video. So this may be a really fun experience for all of us. Hello all, is this the Doctor Who live chat? It is in fact the Doctor Who live chat. I want to specifically welcome you here, good sir. So the more we talk about it, the more we see the same old fights and arguments that generally come here about Discovery and its quote-unquote SJW agenda, or I don't even call it an SJW agenda, but its left-leaning bias, which is, and I wouldn't even say left-leaning bias. I would say agenda, a left-leaning agenda versus a left-leaning bias, and I think there is a difference there. And it's interesting to see the differences between people. So usually you have someone who is like, yes, this is 100% people who are just pushing an SJW message and trying to convert us all into something we don't want to be and take away our freedom of speech. Or you have the opposite side of people who say, I don't see anything. It's the exact same thing. This is exactly what you saw in the original series. It's the same thing. And they talk. That's exactly how they talk, by the way. I don't put you that voice on your in your comments when you when you say that. So, or when you comment like that. I'm definitely not pretending that's how you're saying it. Last time we had a conversation, you guys liked me playing a video. I'm not going to do this every day, but today I kind of wanted to because I saw one that was done a couple of years ago by Steve Shives. So got to get a couple of things out because I always try to say this up front. Steve Shives and I have been friends going on 4 or 5 years. Generally we don't interact, but we talk ever so often. Though he unfollowed me on Twitter, didn't block me, but unfollowed me on Twitter, as well as a couple of other places after I just went to town on Carlos Maza, who is one of the most horrific individuals, I think, that exists on planet Earth. I really think he's one of the biggest bad faith actors on YouTube, or really in the United States. Victor Snyder helping out the channel says, this man needs some coffee. I actually am way ahead of you, good sir. I have some coffee right here. Not a lot in it, though, and that makes me sad. So, the other thing to point out when it comes to this is that one of the things I hate about video responses is that sometimes the people who respond to videos can do it in somewhat in bad faith and not mean to. In this video, I don't necessarily think that Steve is generally considering people who are more moderate or on the fence, or maybe center-right on the topic. I think he more is talking about those extreme toxic elements. I will say that both he and others lump all of those people together. I would dare, while I can't prove it, I would dare postulate or theorize that Steve, like many others, consider my channel to be the same as Mecha Random, Doomcock, Nerdrotics, even though I think there is a definitive difference there. Oh, and by the way, off topic. Apparently, if you're on Reddit and you say my name and I come and comment, you can't really get pissed off about that. People go on Reddit to complain about me quite a bit, and when I come on, they're like, "Oh my god, you're using a public thing." So I'm gonna respond to you. Anyway, sorry, recent gripe. So we're about to get started into this video. It's Steve Shives' SJW's Invented Star Trek. I think we're gonna have some very interesting. I'm starting it a minute 32 in because the first couple minutes aren't really relevant to what I want to talk about. I'll link it in the description. You guys go take a look at it. And hey, if you actually like Steve Shives or you think it'd be interesting, you should subscribe to him. Can't wait to see the dislikes for that. And my friend has a good point. 66 concurrent viewers, 67, and only 14 likes. What the hell's up with that? All right. So I went at Lore Reloaded. There's a difference between questioning ideas and pulling up straw men to make your point look perfect. I would agree with that. So we're going to see. We're going to have this conversation. I feel that it has the same bias, but TNG era had more nuance and counterpoints in presentation. See, JJMFDL, I completely disagree with you, but let's get into it. Let's start this. Thanks for over 2 years of great productions. Can you figure out what the amount number means? Thanks for over 2 years, Surf Trectonics. By the way, guys, the way I keep these this channel going, the way I keep the lights on is through support from you guys. Thanks for over 2 years of great production. Can you figure out what the amount number means? When you talk about what the amount number means, I'm confused. Is it on my thing? What do you mean amount number? Just ping me and I'll take a look. All right, here we go. Here we go. Was it this one? Yeah. And I got it first try. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. By the way, I want to say something. I cannot stand his setup. He always has a good setup, and his audio is always perfect, and I get insanely jealous of that. All right. Let's get started. Let me know if you guys can hear it. You should be able to. Let me know about sound.
And I hope that it's a good version of Trek, but it's set in the Prime universe, which is important to a lot of...
How's that sound? I'm going to give it about 3 minutes because that's how long the delay is. By the way, if you're noticing the delay seems long, refresh it. It should actually catch it up. One of the reasons I'm doing twitch.tv/Lore Reload is the delay is a lot better. Like, insanely better. But yeah, now I sit here and wait. Before anything else, Jadzia Dax, best Star Trek girl. That's just a lie. It's that cute redhead in the first TOS, the pilot. It's a shame that she doesn't exist today. Okay, let me know if anything's up with the audio. Let me turn up just a little bit. Let me know if there's any distortion between the two. Quit licking this Shives guy's boots, Lore. Oh my god. Oh man. You said something positive about something I don't like. Quit it. Stop it. Veglarg for Monkey's Lights. Well, thank you. Monkey needs lights. Oh yeah, and I'm just going to put this out there. I always do this trigger warning. Sometimes I'm going to agree with what he says in here, and sometimes what he says I'm not going to take a huge issue with. If you don't like somebody who can say, "Hey, Steve Shives was right on X," you're not going to have a good time. Let's get started.
People, and I thought the set design looked awesome. I thought the special effects looked awesome. I liked the uniform design. I liked all of it. I just think it looks great, and I am eager to check it out, and I hope that it's a good show. But there are some other folks that had some other problems with it, and they weren't really the kinds of problems that I think deserve to be taken seriously, and I hope that they're not the sort of problems that are found by a large portion of the Star Trek fan community. I don't think they are, but these sorts of folks have always been there, and they've had problems with Star Trek for this reason before, but that doesn't mean that they're ever going to go away. And these are the folks who are upset because Star Trek Discovery is too politically correct. I haven't even seen the show yet, but they know that it's too politically correct. You know how?
Not completely true. And I do think that there is some attempts to combine things that aren't necessarily that don't correlate with each other. There every time a new Star Trek show comes out, somebody has an issue. That's right, and it's a large vocal minority, generally, and it can be various different things, but it's not completely true that they're all aligned. Let's continue on.
How they know that it's too politically correct? For the same reason that folks knew that Star Wars The Force Awakens was going to be too politically correct before they ever saw that movie, because there's women and black people in it. Oh boy. It's a Star Trek show where it looks like from the trailer the two lead characters, they're both women. And one of them is a black woman and one of them is an Asian woman. Uh-oh.
All right. Let's get into that. Let's have that conversation. I would say there is a segment of people who have an issue with, who had an issue, possibly continue to have an issue, with the fact that the leads are women and are women of color. Though I think women of color doesn't matter as much to a certain segment. We'll get into that. But are specifically women and go out of their way for diversity's sake. From what I can tell and from what I've seen, and I'd love your guys' feedback on this, there are two types of people. And I'm not sure which segment is bigger than the other one. First, you have people who just outright don't think that women should be in the lead, that men do better jobs, and they justify it however they want to justify it. Through various different metrics and means, or sometimes they just admit that they just don't want to see women up there. That's fair. I think there's a segment there. There's also a segment that doesn't like the fact that women are up front because they feel like it's pushing, it's attempting to force what one person's cultural or standard norm is, and doing it at the expense of a good story, doing it at the expense of what makes the most sense, and even doing it at the expense of the people that they are attempting to prop up. I have stated this a couple of times, and I stand completely by this. In some TV series, in some movies, you can see where they are just outright pandering and attempting to pull upon the specific segment that they're trying to get. And it's been done for every demographic, for white men, for colored women, for LGBT. It's been done quite a bit. And by pandering in this way, they diminish that which they are trying to push forward. And so what's being said here, and again, this isn't just Shives. Shives is just the video that I found, decided to use. This is an argument used by a lot of people. It's like, oh my God, you're just scared that someone is a person of color. And you have to distinguish between the two differences, because if you don't, your argument is going to be utterly destroyed. Because all one has to do is show how a person could have a reasonable concern with how media is portraying and how that portrayal negatively impacts the people and society. And now you've not only been delegitimized, but you take the chance of having the race or the sexists or racists legitimized, because again, you've lumped all of them together. And since one is able to justify it, people who are on the fence may start listening to the others who cannot justify it. So it's a really dangerous way to take a look at this, and it's completely unfair, in my opinion. Now, and by the way, Surf Tectonics, please at Lori Loaded me, and let me see what you were talking about when it comes to the numbers. Now, this happens on the other side too, by the way, quite a lot. Both sides do it. Everybody's evil. Just so we understand, you guys, if you're looking at this and you're like, oh hell yeah, Oh, hell yeah. You are probably on the side that does it too, because anyone who likes Discovery is obviously a shill, you know? Uh, Looking at your guys' comments before we uh, continue, mostly critical at Lower Loaded, mostly critical and makes fun and jest to help and make a point. Nerdrotic, mostly negative. Blah, 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 blah. I take umbrage with people promoting equality, but clearly not showing it, and then when they're questioned, they show through ists at you like it's an anchor to drown you with. Yeah, it can be an issue. Shirt is better today. Well, I'm here for U-turn, and I'm glad it can be better. According to SJWs, the classical liberals of the 80s and 90s are far-right extremists. Avery Brooks has said of Cons that he wanted to play a man and not a black man because he is more than color. Yeah, I think that's a wonderful way to put it, honestly. I really do. The guy was praising, I don't know who that is. 1017 is a ship number. It is a ship. Oh, you want me to explain the numbering system of the ships? Yeah, the ship numbering system is insane. And they don't really, they randomly put them up there. They randomly do the ship numbers. There's no rhyme or reason to it. All right, guys, we'll continue on.
White genocide. SJWs are ruining Star Trek. Which, by the way, when someone says that, that makes me laugh on so many different levels. For one thing, if you are a grown-up and you are unironically using the term SJW, you probably need to take a good long look at yourself in the mirror and sort of reevaluate some things. If you are seriously, sincerely calling other people SJWs and you expect to be taken seriously by other adults, when you say that, you need there's something going on there that you maybe need to reevaluate. But
insert blocking everyone joke here.
When they say SJWs have taken over Star Trek, I got news for you. SJWs invented Star Trek.
Okay, so let's be fair with what he's saying here. He's trying to say that Star Trek has been created by liberals with a left-leaning bias. That's fair. To say social justice warriors actually created Star Trek is silly, because social justice warriors is a slur meant for people who are toxic and who are trying to attack and harm someone based on their gender or their race. It's just reverse. Social justice warriors are generally people who literally want white people to be harmed or to take a back seat. They don't want equality, but that's unfair. What he meant, we'll take what he meant and be fair, that liberals created Star Trek and that it's an attempt to be more left-leaning. Now, Nathan Norman says, no, liberals and conservatives invented Star Trek. Star Trek has always been left-leaning and has always had a left-leaning bias. There have been conservative elements, generally done by the executives, because Star Trek came out in a time that was heavily conservative. Were they conservative themselves and thus made those changes? I don't think so. I think they were really following market trends. That's why Star Trek is heavily militarized. That's why we have a healthier view of the military in the original series and later TNG. The religion is there, which is something definitively during the TOS era Gene did not want. And that would be considered more conservative, of course. So, going on Nathan's point, was it made by liberals and conservatives? Maybe, but I really only think that it had any of the strong conservative points because of market trends. Also, JJMFDL, given $2. Thank you so much for the cat. Is the cat still there? Yeah, he's still there. Hey, sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you. What do you mean by bricking, Leon? So, yeah, if you're a mod and there's anything untowards being said or any kind of violence, please take care of that. If I see it, I'm going to just ban you outright. I believe Star Trek was more moderate than left-leaning. I might be wrong. I have to disagree. Continuum track. I think it is left-leaning. I think that's definitive. Hey Kitty, says Jeff Franklin. Let's see. That was indeed 90 years later. I don't know what the hell y'all talking about. Roddenberry was a progressive man, but he was a capitalist through and through. Well, at least until TNG. I don't know that he was like ever a huge capitalist. I think he liked using capitalism to make money. I don't know that he was a huge capitalist. Gene Roddenberry was the in real life Captain Kirk. No, under no sense. A 1960s liberal would be a 2019 conservative. I don't know. I don't know about that. Trek was always considered progressive. I will agree with that. All right, let's continue it on. If Star Trek was made by SJWs, it wouldn't have had any nuance nor discussion. It would have straw men everywhere. Correct.
And actually, that would be a really good title for this video. Just hang on, I want to write that down just to make sure that I don't forget that.
We'll wait. Take your time.
SJWs. As I said, there have always been these
Ghost Wrestling, thank you so much for the support, guys. I can't do this without you guys. Thank you so much.
There have always been these reactionary responses whenever any property that has been perceived as being dominated by white folks, or particularly white men, starts to be more racially and sexually inclusive. There are always people who are going to flip out about it and start complaining. It happened, as I said, a couple years ago with The Force Awakens, and it's even happened before in Star Trek. That's one of the things that I wanted to bring up in this video. I've been a Star Trek fan for my entire life. I'm 37. I've been a fan for probably about 30 years at this point.
I can't believe he's 30. I can't believe how old Steve is. Oh my God. I always thought he was as young as I am. I'm young being relative. I'm going to be 34 or 35 this year. I always thought he was closer to my age. I mean, he's not. I'm talking about like, well, actually this was 2 years ago. So that'd be, oh, I'm bad at math. That'd put him quite a few years, 4 or 5 years. I didn't know he was that old. He's not wrong here, by the way.
I came in right before Next Generation started. And I have seen this before, and it has never made any sense to me. When Avery Brooks was cast as Captain Sisko, and they announced that Deep Space Nine would be the first Star Trek series to have a black actor playing the lead, there were people who complained about that. Affirmative action! Star Trek's going with affirmative action, or they're picking a token black guy so they can pat themselves on the back for how diverse they are.
So, this goes back to the conversation we were kind of having beforehand. And the way Steve promotes it here is unfortunate, but based on what he believes, I can see the disdain. First off, can't you put Steve in a smaller box on screen? No, I can't put Steve in a smaller box on screen. But thank you for the support. Okay, so I'm going to go back and look at this bricking thing, and I'm going to remove everybody if it's too big of a headache. So we can stop talking about it right now is what we can do. Unless bricking is somehow referencing me. So, if you think affirmative action is a great thing, then people talking against it is going to just piss you off. There's two types of people that you're lumping in together, and if one is able to delegitimize your talking point, then both are going to seem more charitable. There are people who don't like affirmative action because they believe it's unfair, that it's reverse racism, and that it actually hurts everybody. Then there are people who just don't like the fact that people of color have been treated poorly, and that now people are trying to reverse that. There are honest to God racists that don't like affirmative action because it helps someone who doesn't have the same skin color as them. It's important to delineate the two so that we can either teach one side why affirmative action is appropriate, or we can at least make sure we're everyone knows the two people we're talking about. Because I don't think that it's clear in this day and age when you just blanket like that. I don't think it was that clear 2 years ago either. Additionally, of all the hate that I've seen, there was some issues with the fact that it was a black captain and it was affirmative action. But that wasn't the mainstay of it for that time. Most of it was the fact that they weren't doing the prime directive, that they were staying in one spot, that they had characters that were evil compared to what TNG, that it wasn't the clear-cut, lovely, great times that was happening with Picard. That was the mainstay of it. The fact that the captain happened to be of a different color at that time, as far as I can see. Now, I'm going to say this to the chat, and Steve, if you ever watch this, though I doubt you will, if there are citations that I'm missing and it was this whole big thing, then yes, please let me know. But to my knowledge, from what I could see, when I did research on this, his color didn't play a huge role at that point. The other piece to it was that, so if it wasn't, let's just say I'm right for the sake of argument here. If there wasn't a huge issue at that point, then let's discuss right now and with Janeway, because he makes a point with Janeway that I think is fair. I think culturally the dynamics have changed in that way, where the market's doing a correction because of the culture, and I think the culture is trying to do a correction as well. I'm going to read your comments in just a minute, okay? And you guys are about to get pretty angry with me, I'm sure. I do think that there is a cultural correction occurring that may be needed to some degree. I think that historically, even into the 80s and 90s, though it wasn't as horrific, there was a propensity to put males ahead of females. You can come up with different examples of where this didn't happen. Your Ripleys and other female characters. But I think generally, not as bad in the 80s and 90s, definitely the 60s and 70s and 50s, males were pretty dominant. And possibly, this one I'm not as sure of, but possibly white males were as dominating. So we're having a cultural shift where we're trying to make it more equal, and we're trying to equalize. Now, in that shift, what is occurring is people who have felt oppressed, whether, if I'm wrong, we'll say, who either were oppressed or felt oppressed. So whether you think I'm right or not, they either were oppressed or they felt oppressed, are trying to overcompensate and turn those who are in power to what the oppressed were. Which I think explains it. I don't see, and I think that people are getting upset about that because it's not really equality if we're simply doing what was done to the person, you know? So, I don't know. Now, we're going to pause a second and take a look, because I've seen a couple of times where people say a few things that it's toxic. So let's take a look at chat and see how toxic it is. And there is a comment here that I hope is still there. Where is it? From our good friend James Andrew Morrison that we'll address. And then we'll take a look and see if there's any toxicity, because I have very little interest in that being in my chat. So James says, if you have to think that hard to make a point, you are either slow-minded or talking pure BS. So James, if you're talking about me, I am sorry that you grow up in a place where people talk out their ass and decide to just say what comes to their mind first. I prefer, when talking about things that are sensitive and things that I care about, to think through and walk through what I say and ensure I mean how I say it. Now, if you're not talking to me, then I'd be curious who you're responding to, since I'm the only one technically talking. However, if you have an issue with the way that I'm going, please feel free to go to any other channel that will just instantly spew whatever they want, because I'm going to be nuanced in what I'm saying. I may not get my hair cut. It may look horrific. I may wear a shirt once every 5 days, which apparently is a bad thing. And I may not shave. But by God, my speech will be nuanced, good sir. But again, you may not be talking to me, so don't take it personally if you aren't. What's toxic? Let's see. Best character in Trek? It's a tie between Rom and Bashir. I agree. I like Cisco. Lorca was good too. But let me ask this, and I want people to be honest here. Is the chat getting too toxic? Because if it is, we can go back. Are you talking? Yes, Bird of Prey 5. I am only talking to you, good sir. But the only ones I talk to. So if you can hear me. But yeah, we got 152 people watching, only 48 likes. Anyway, let me know if you guys, if it's getting too toxic, and we can look at a way of adjusting that. I find that whole idea that the fans who don't like Star Trek Discovery and Star Wars are a bunch of complaining sexists and racists who don't like black people and strong people utterly absurd. I would agree. Is Laura calling a crazy cat lady talk? They are toxic. I'm pretty toxic, to be honest. Yep. Take it gone. Banned. I haven't really been noticing toxic, but I really don't pay attention to chat. Yeah, I'm not either, so that could be it too. Chat moving too quick for me to get triggered, says Fecklark. Okay, so you guys want me to continue? It's not being too bad? As long as we're all staying nice, I'll continue. Because again, I have very little interest in this turning into anything. I feel ignored. Why don't you love me, Laura? Is it because I edit for a talking? Yeah, Mr. Miles, the fact that you don't edit for me just makes me mad. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. You keep trying to sleep and I keep waking you up. I'm sorry. More toxic than Coffin. I don't even know who Coffin is. All right, let's continue. Let's go. Oh. Wrong button.
Star Trek Voyager. Oh, Jesus. Now there's a woman captain. Oh, and there's a black Vulcan. More affirmative action. Oh, there's a woman going to be captain. How are they going to know who's in charge? What if she gets her period while she's in space?
Never heard the period thing. Didn't hear any complaints about the Vulcan being black. There was a lot of pushback for Janeway. And I honestly, I think that's legitimate. A legitimate complaint to have, and it felt from the research I did, it seemed like it was more than normal when a Star Trek show comes out, with a lot of people saying that women shouldn't be in the military, they can't command, yada yada yada. Whether you believe that's true or not, I don't care. Looking at specifically the Star Trek universe, women have been very capable and able to do anything that males can do. So we don't even need to have the argument of whether women can or not. So I think that's honestly fair. And here's part of my problem with this. Because a lot of this has been critical of Steve, but Steve has some good ideas, some actual honest to God complaints that we could take a look at and we can break down. But because of how both sides look at each other, because if you don't say exactly what the person wants, they don't listen to you, or they dismiss you, or they other you. It is something that I do feel like. Sven Buelens, I look like a Romulan with a beard. Why, thank you. Thank you. It is something that I do honestly think is worth looking at. Though interestingly, here's something interesting that I noticed when I look at how Janeway, the complaints that came up with Janeway when she first came up, and then we look at the complaints with Michael and with what was her name, Georgiou. The complaints are completely different, which I thought was interesting. Um, it wasn't because they were captains or in the military, not really. And I'm curious what you guys thought of that. I'd argue that you can't compare the reactions of previous tracks to the reactions of Discovery on the basis of the internet either not existing or being in its infancy for other tracks. I think it's different. I think it amplifies it. I would agree with that. But there is some differences there. Okay, seriously, why do people act like black people are the only people of color on the planet or in fiction? They don't generally, but because of the United States specifically enslaving African Americans, I think that's why it seems like it. When I say everything Steve Shives says is false, it's because Steve is saying that's a horrible way to look at things. Okay, well, let's continue on.
We've heard this before, and it has never made the least bit of sense, especially when people are complaining about Star Trek. And why is that? Because Star Trek is probably, no, not even probably, Star Trek is definitely the most intentionally, self-consciously, politically correct show that has ever been made. And I don't like the term politically correct either, but I think you know what I'm talking about when I say that. Progressive, inclusive, diverse. That has been a part of...
Oh, was it inclusive, Steve? In the original series, when all the men got to do, all the white men, and he's going to bring this up, so this isn't fair, but was it when all of the white men really got to do all of the fun stuff and the women fawned over them? And Kirk and Spock were made to look like these just, beacons. And we didn't even get a female lead, a real female lead until when? When, Steve? When did we get it? Let's see. 1995. No, I'm sorry. 1995. Yeah. Inclusive, Steve? I mean, some of that's arguable, and I get it, but just looking at it from what's presented. To be fair, he talks about it a little bit. I also reject. And again, this is Steve did the video, but this is more just referring to those who believe, because this is common arguments given by those who try to diminish what critics of Star Trek say, Star Trek Discovery. Where was I going with that? Star Trek has always had a left-leaning bias, but not an agenda, and there have been conservative elements to it. So has it just been this bastion of PC or liberal arts? No, it hasn't. Not until it tried to be with Discovery.
Star Trek's
objectively,
mission,
provably so.
from the very beginning. It's not something that just sort of happened. It's not something that later producers or writers kind of forced on it. The dude who created Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, who I have a lot of complicated feelings about. I'm one of the Star Trek fans who thinks that he probably gets way too much credit for Star Trek and for what Star Trek ultimately became. But one of the things Gene Roddenberry did right was from the very beginning, he said, by design, this show is going to be diverse. This show is not going to be just about white men. There's going to be people of color on this show. There's going to be women on this show. The crew of this starship is going to be multicultural, is going to be gender equal. And it's going to be...
Oh, gender equal, we say. Gender equal. Pike saying that he isn't used to women on the bridge. Number one, lusting after Pike and only upset because he didn't look at it, because he didn't think of her as a woman, so she couldn't bounce on his lap. Women being presented as just absolutely insane. just for sometimes for no reason. Women always fawning after him. Gender equal, we say, Steve. Gender equal. Andorian nationalist is trolling you guys. Don't ban him or listen to him. Gender equal. It's gender equal. TNG, first episode, that's coming out today. TNG, where you have Deanna Troi, and all she cares about is bouncing on Riker's lap. I mean, just making sure her Imzadi comes to the Lord. In fact, when they are trying to figure out what is going on Farpoint Station, because they know someone is in great pain, you know all Deanna Troi cares about is going down into the catacombs with her XO, just so they can figure out what's going on, if you get what I mean. But there's gender equality. There is just fucking rewriting. Stop rewriting history. Oh. Yeah, and not even the short skirts. That's right, MBF78. This, Steve Shives is a good guy. And he's decent. Leave. Lex the Legend says, Lord chill. Okay, I'm going to chill, buddy. I'm going to chill. In the original series, they actually can be captains. There's one title. There's one piece of dialogue where someone says that women aren't captains. Two things to that. First off, there's also a Vulcan. There's also a Romulan who says Vulcans can't be captains. Or maybe Spock says Vulcans can't be captains. But more importantly, and to the point, is that the person who said that women can't be captains was insane. And we do see in other series before TOS happens, women in command. There is a female admiral, and we have no reason to believe that females can't be captains in the original series. There's just no evidence for that. You complain about Troy, but Tasha Yar was also in that episode, says Bad Words. To my knowledge, Tasha Yar didn't do anything crazy, or that didn't show it. I don't know. Shout out from Canada. What's going on? I was subbed to him for a while, but I just couldn't do it anymore. Again, I think Steve gets a worse rap than he does, but there are things that I disagree with. He actually once called me a sexist, though I didn't know it, is the way he put it. He's an interesting guy.
Part of the show. It's going to be part of the...
He means well. Let me say this. Honest to God, I think Steve Shives just wants the world to be better. And I think he's doing it the best he can. I honest to God believe that. No derision or irony there.
The point of the show. If you see the Star Trek Discovery trailer and all of a sudden you're flipping out about political correctness and SJW stuff in Star Trek, where the fuck have you been? What show have you been watching? I would love to know. I would love to know what you think Star Trek is. If you have watched it for however many years you've watched it, and you have somehow missed all of the stories about the importance of diversity and inclusion and tolerance, that all just went right over your head. So, what show have you been watching? What do you think Star Trek is? Honestly, no disrespect. Racist who has a problem with black women in Star Trek. No disrespect.
All right. Well, let me respond to you. And let me just say, where I've been, and I say this with no disrespect, you same cap wearing apparently likes to have a pin every time someone watches him, talks to stuffed animals and then dubs over and gives them voice. Guy who joked about suicide before you became a quote-unquote SJW pandering YouTuber who will turn on a dime against people like you did with... who the hell is that guy's name? He wears glasses. He's really well known. Thin guy. I see his face. I can't think of it. The rational atheist or the thinking atheist, I think. And no disrespect in any of that. But I was actually in a different house than you, watching the same show as you, just not with a fucking bias. I was watching it from a as neutral standpoint as I can be, and not just looking for what I wanted to see. So that's where I was. Now I don't know where you were specifically, but that's where I was.
But what a flat, boring world you must live in.
Yeah, it's horrible, man. I tell you. Sven Bulens, do you think that there are burly women as captains because of the time it's written, because it's part of the Star Trek future vision? No, I don't think so. All of the women, I think, were very attractive. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think so. I do live in the same house of Steve Shives. That's exactly what I wanted you to take from that. Shives just wants to preach to a choir. I'm sorry, but I don't think he actually cares that much when he refuses to engage. I disagree. I think he cares. I think he just doesn't think it's worth talking to people. And no, it wasn't the amazing atheist. It wasn't Shives versus... It was the thinking atheist or the thinking something. I think it was the thinking atheist? Is it the thinking atheist? Yeah. Yeah, the thinking atheist. Seth Andrews. This is the happiest day of my life. Finally, someone is responding to his videos. I'm glad I could make your day. By the way, 173 people watching, only 71 likes. Don't be scared of that like button. Or hit the dislike button. I don't care. Got some serious rest in B face. Seth Andrews. That's right, Vile Mike.
That you have... I mean, it's not like it's even subtle. It's not like it's just this little thing in Star Trek that's very sort of under the radar. It's subtext, and some people pick up on it, and some people don't.
Not only is it subtle, but, subtle. So at first that wants me to get angry, but I don't know that subtle is the right word. There are bad points of TNG where they can be just like Discovery. Who Watches the Watchers is an example of that. TNG Season 1, Season 2 against the Ferengi and capitalism is an example of that. But when you look at the subtext, I break this down for a living, Steve. I promise to God I know what I'm talking about. When you look at DS9 or later TNG, and you look at episodes where they talk about the poor and how people are just put into these spaces because they just don't want to be looked at. Or you look at how how Dax has been a man and a woman and a man, and how Dax kisses a woman and wants to be with a woman, and fighting the tabooness of it, just because Dax loves the person, not because of who the person is, doesn't care about the gender or anything like that. And these things are normalized, and dare I say, I think it's a bad word, but I don't think it's completely out, but dare I say, I'm not going to call it subtle. It's normalized. It's my problem with, not specifically Steve. This is why I get passionate about it. Because the more I think about this, the more unchill I get. My problem is, and this is with the mentality, not necessarily Steve, is that ideas done in the way that we see in TNG, DS9, Voyager, even Voyager, Enterprise, and some TOS episodes, normalizes things and does them in a way that doesn't instantly push a person away. My problem is that when you do it like Discovery, all you do is galvanize people and push them into places they shouldn't be, because you're trying to get points and just try to make money. And then you have people like you, Steve, who defends stupidity and makes more white nationalists than you fucking try to go against. I have learned more by people who didn't block and who showed things, normalized things, showed them how they should be and discuss things than I ever did by watching a fucking show that pandered to what I believe in. This is why toxic liberalism, and this is one thing I will say about you, Steve, being a toxic liberal is just as bad as being the worst of the worst Bible-thumping believer. Not to say that Christians are bad or anything like that, but Westboro Baptist Church is equal, directly. Westboro Baptist Church equals toxic liberal. You're all the same, every one of you, because you don't let people learn on their own and you don't present it normalized. All you do is create shows that try to act like someone who probably shouldn't be president, but you make it worse so the person who probably shouldn't be president looks better and gets fucking voted for. You are the best thing for... There's a difference between, first off, if you want to call it subtle, it has been subtle until discovery. There are some instances that it's not, but it has been subtle. I prefer the word normalized. And here's another thing that I think, and here's a point. Let's look at two ways discovery, one way they got it right, and one way they didn't. Let's do it this way. At first, what's his name? He's not the engineer, but he's the engineer stand-in. The science officer who did the spore drive. Jesus Christ. Star Trek, Discovery, engineer? No, that's going to give me the wrong person. That's going to give me Natar. Who's the blonde guy? Trek Discovery cast. Let's do that. Stamets. When they first introduced Stamets, a lot of people got really upset. It's like, oh, they're trying to just push politics. They're trying to push homosexuality. A lot of people got upset at that. But then what did they do? They made Stamets a person, and they normalized what it was. Because that should be something normalized. Heterosexual, homosexual, who cares? We all love who we love. We do what we do as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. Who cares? And that's exactly what it is with Stamets. He was... Hey, what are we doing? Hey, relax. Hold on. Hey, relax. We're all friends. Lieutenant Stamets was an engineer, sarcastic as hell, funny, and he was in love with the doctor. And they did a great storyline with that. And people shut the fuck up about it. But then, what did they do with Lorca? They made Lorca a stand-in for Trump. Lorca, and then they had Lorca take on someone who was worse than Lorca. So they made Lorca not only look good in the context of the universe, but by saying President Trump is a mirror universe person who hates aliens and whatnot, and is just science fiction Hitler. They made Trump look better. I don't know. Give me a second. Guys, what are we doing? Let's relax. Hey, be nice to each other. All right. So anyway. Bet I lost a lot of people there. Tilly is awesome. 100%. All right. King Ellis Seor. I 100% take your point on this. Here's why I disagree. For decades, liberals did what you said, being subtle, letting us slide. For those decades, neo-Nazis and their ilk grew and grew. Completely disagree, King. Completely disagree. You know when we started seeing an uptick? In fact, you would see liberalism grow and grow and grow, and conservatism and white nationalists and such be diminished greatly. And I don't think conservatives are white nationalists at all. Don't put those together. But you would see extreme elements be taken down. The KKK, for all intents and purposes, is obliterated, and it has little to no power. Little to no power. And a lot of that was because liberals were able to show why that is exactly a stupid idea. And conservatives agreed with that. Most conservatives agree with that. We started seeing an uptick. We started seeing people like just the worst of the worst put into power when toxic liberal elements started calling everyone Nazis. You're not a Nazi. You're a Nazi if you think that there should be border patrol or that there should be immigration issues. You're a Nazi if you think that people should be able to defend themselves with guns. As soon as we saw that, we saw a extreme rise in white nationalism and in extreme elements. Now, if you disagree with that, I honestly would challenge you to go and look back at history, but that may be something that we just agree to disagree with. But I sincerely 100% believe. And let's just say I'm wrong on that. Let's say that you're right. And let's say that you're right. Let's say that you're right and Nazism was on the rise because people are being too subtle. I'd bet you money. I'd bet you cash money that when people started calling other people Nazis and told them that they're wrong for believing the most benign stuff, that it supercharged those elements that were growing. I'll bet you cash on the table money. Anyway, let's keep going.
It's not subtext. I'm going to go out on a limb, dude. It's not subtext, dude.
Bruh.
It's text. Star Trek has always been overtly about inclusion and diversity and tolerance and equality.
No, it hasn't.
So if you're complaining now because you
discussed
see a black woman and an Asian woman in a trailer and you're like, where are the white dudes? Congratulations on missing the point of the thing you're complaining about that you're supposedly such a fan of more epically than is even typical on the internet. Epic point missing is one of the foremost features of the internet. But you, my friend, if you have missed the message of tolerance and diversity in Star Trek, you have missed the point on a hitherto unheard of scale.
The irony in that statement. I'll never bet coffee, ever. I'll never bet coffee. I'm not that raised. Proven 22 times, Trump doesn't hate anyone. He's a businessman enforcing our border laws and holding lawbreakers accountable. We deserve to know who's coming in to keep us safe, yada, yada, yada. If you like Trump, that's fine. I don't particularly like Trump all that much. I think he got in fair and square. I do think that it was just a reaction. I don't want to get into it. We're not going to get into politics, but sorry. Someone just offered to bring me food, and I accepted that offer. I apologize. That was very unprofessional of me. I think that if you're a Republican, I think if you're a conservative or a Democrat, you have a lot of... wow. I think if you're conservative or a liberal, you have a lot of reasons not to like Trump. I think... I don't know. Maybe one day I'll do a political thing. I can't really see how anyone on either side has a huge expectation from him. He has said a lot of things that both sides should get upset about. That's just me. I don't want to get in politics.
Congratulations. And congratulations for carrying on that tradition because you are joining.
Tyler to FO1. I came here for Trek, not the Trump analysis. Move on, please. Dude, this is not the place. The chat is going to be whatever the hell I want it to be and just relaxed and us having a conversation. I agree that it shouldn't get political, but if you don't like it moving into things like that, and I'm not upset or anything, I suggest just watching my videos because the live chat is going to be me having a conversation. I don't mean that in a bad way. I hope you didn't take that wrong.
Joining a proud line of reactionary malcontents who also pissed and moaned about Captain Janeway and Tuvok and Commander Sisko. Congratulations. And I'm not saying, by the way, that Star Trek is perfect, because certainly it is not. There is room to critique Star Trek for its gender politics and for its racial politics, right? But yeah.
This is probably where we're going to stop it when it comes to this video. I'm going to, because he doesn't really go more than that. The one thing I do want to kind of say to this, though, is that I find that funny because what am I trying to say here? He's okay with arguing as long as you argue what he likes to argue, or find egregious what he finds egregious. And again, this isn't necessarily Steve. This is just consistent with people who fight or talk in that way. And that's just the way it is. Alexander Hagen, a Steve Shives analysis. Yes, glad to see some other perspectives on how he represents Trek. I think a lot of Steve's stuff is good, though. Again, I think Steve isn't. I think Steve sometimes gets an unfair shake, though there are things that he has issues with. Spit it out, sport. Frederick, if you want to come here and have a conversation, buddy, we can have a talk. Hold on a second. This is gonna be fun. Hold on, this is gonna be fun. Hold on. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Hey, I'm live in front of over 170 people. Just want to let you know that. Yes, come over and bring me something to eat.
Okay, but...
I know it's horrible. Don't make me look bad in front of my fans.
Okay, what do you want?
A Philly cheesesteak, because I'm fat.
From where?
Where else? Wherever you get Philly cheesesteaks. The Philly Cheesesteak Factory.
Does it have... Okay, my question is, does it have to be from Sonic?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, cool. I will talk to you later. I'm going to go back to talking to my fans.
Bye.
Bye. See, that's how you get it done right there. Right there, people. There you go. I was just juxtaposing Star Trek Discovery Orange Man bad take. I don't agree with it. Says proven 20 times. Okay, I got you. That makes sense. You get them from Philly. That's I should have said that. I wish I had thought that. You get them from Philly. That's awesome. I like Sisko and don't really like Janeway, but I've agreed with many of her actions. Sure. People push this narrative that Star Trek is pure optimism, but at the same time is a universe with things like Orion slaves and religious rituals and beliefs. It can have what was supposed to be what was supposed to be what the hell? I'm reading your guys' comments. What the hell were we talking about? Oh, that's right. So the happy son of a bitch. The happy future or whatever was supposed to be more for Starfleet than it was for the universe. So the universe actually could be evil. Hey, you there?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry. My audience feels like I may have oppressed you or have used the patriarchy to make you go get me a sandwich. You don't feel oppressed or anything, right?
No.
Okay, can you say that a little bit louder?
No, I do not feel oppressed.
Okay, and you don't think it's the patriarchy or anything like that, right?
No.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Because I offered.
That's right. So yeah, so bring it here. Wear something cute. Talk to you later. All right, that's it of that. That joke is done. Section 31 tried to genocide the Great Link. Yeah, so, and that's a lot. So let's talk about that. The Starfleet was supposed to be like this, this big thing, right? It was supposed to be... Starfleet was supposed to be like, and humanity specifically, was supposed to be this happy-go-lucky thing, this great future. I had to close my eyes and need to stop reading while I'm talking. And so the universe could actually be evil. And a lot of people got very, very upset when Section 31 came out because it does go completely in the face of everything humanity was supposed to be and Starfleet was supposed to be. That's why a lot of people don't like it. Heading out, have a good, insert relevant time period here, obligatory plug. New TOS review is up. Later all, got to go. My woman needs to make me a sandwich. File Mike, is that for me, or are you actually leaving? But yeah, so Star Trek again has since really TNG, you could argue, had a negative slide from being this utopia. But Discovery takes it to the next level. You know, I've said this before, and I've had this conversation before. The different nostalgia Trek really are Discovery light in some of what they do. DS9 had a lot of action and battle and a lot of heartache and loss and death. Discovery just took that to like level 20. Voyager dang near almost immediately stopped caring about continuity. Just wholesale stopped caring about continuity. And Discovery again took that to 20. And so we don't see anything in Discovery that necessarily we haven't seen in Nostalgia Trek. But the thing is, the real point here is that I think that the reason why they're different and what people who like Discovery or try to defend it don't understand is that there is quite clearly a different spirit in which it's done. Sorry, I'm trying to read your comments and continue doing this. So I do think that I think that the way they were made is definitively shows definitive differences, in my opinion. I don't know. I'm open to the conversation. Ghost of Wrestling giving me $15. Thank you so 15 DKK. I'm not sure what that is. Thank you so much. But yeah, what are your guys' opinions? In my opinion, DS9 wasn't that dark. I disagree, man. You had Nor the Battle Too Strong. You had the Siege of AR, what is it, 556 or 558 or 667, whatever the hell the number's supposed to be. You had the Death of Dax. I don't know. But DS9 was also very anti-politically correct. The misogyny of the Ferengi is a great example. But did they ever present that as a good thing? Danish Kroner. I didn't know that. Well, thank you, Ghost of Wrestling. A Danish Kroner. That's cool. I wish DS9 was darker. The DS9 books are pretty dark. I have not read the books. I just want a good Star Trek show. I don't disagree with that, JJ. It comes down to what is a quote-unquote good show. AR558. Thank you. Thank you. And even Deep Space Nine addressed things like racism and such. Deep Space Nine had a sci-fi version of Goodfellas. It did. Oh, Nog's leg is perfect. I completely agree with that. Where you could be dark and stuff. It's just the style and stuff, the way it's done as well. I don't know. All right, guys. I think we have had quite the good conversation here. I have a Philly cheesesteak that it is my hope is on the way. So with that, and I hope it hasn't been spit in to bring that up. But with that, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. Check me out tonight, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time on twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. Tomorrow, I'll be live again at 11 p.m. CST, Central Standard Time. 11 a.m. CST, Central Standard. And with that, guys, I think we're going to be done for today. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Guys, I'm going to see you on the next Lore Reloaded. But now this is the time where I'm going to turn this on for a second. See, because I got to wait. I do want food. And, yeah. Yeah. Oh, if there's videos you guys want me to review, not that I'll be doing it every day, but if there's videos you do want me to review, please send it to james@lorereloaded.com. Definitely. Glad you enjoyed Hauntus Farmer. You were great too.